Myself Rashmi Nayak, B.Ed first year, studying in KLE Society's College of Education. Today we'll study Science, Class 9th, Chapter 7, Diversity in Living Organisms. Each organism is different from the other to a lesser or a greater extent. For instance, consider yourself and your friend. Both are not alike. You both are different in some or the other way. But when we compare our ancestor, that is monkey, with me and our friends, then we have a lot in common, right? So, characters resemble from genus and species differ. Similarly, we can take another example of cattle, the cow. Here the different breeds are there, such as Desi, Jersey. So, though they belong to same cattle family, but the breed differs. Some milk more, whereas other less. So, characters depends on basis of their identification. Now, think of all the different forms in which life occurs on Earth. On one hand, we have microscopic bacteria of few micrometer in size, while on the other hand, we have blue whale and our redwood trees of California of approximately sizes of 30 meters and 100 meters respectively. Some species such as pine trees live for thousands of years, while insects like mosquitoes die within a few days. Life also ranges from colorless or even transparent forms to brightly colored birds and flowers. This variety of life around us has evolved on Earth over millions of years. We do not have more than a tiny fraction of this time to try and understand all these living organisms. So, we cannot look at them one by one. Instead, we look for similarities among the organisms which will allow us to put them into different classes and then study different classes or groups as a whole. In order to make relevant groups to study the variety of life forms, we need to decide which characteristics decide more fundamental differences among organisms. This would create the main broad groups of organisms, and within these groups, smaller subgroups will be decided by less important characteristics. Attempts at classifying living things into groups have been made since time immemorial. Greek thinker Aristotle classified animals according to whether they lived on land or in water or in the air. This is a very simple way of looking at life, but misleading too. For example, animals that live in the sea include corals, whales, octopus, sharks, starfishes. We can immediately see that these are very different from each other in numerous ways. In fact, habitat is the only point they share in common, and this is not an appropriate way of making group of organisms to study and think about. We therefore need to decide which characteristics to be used as the basis for making the broadest division. Then we will have to pick up the next set of characteristics for making subgroups within these divisions. This process of classification within each group can then continue using new characteristics each time. Nowadays, we look at many interrelated characteristics starting from the nature of the cell in order to classify all living organisms. That is, the characters such as used for hierarchical classification. Hierarchical classification includes, first, the eukaryotic and a prokaryotic cell. Eukaryotic cell has a membrane bound organelles, whereas prokaryotic cell has absence of membrane bound organelles. Eukaryotic cell have prominent nucleus, whereas prokaryotic cell do not have a prominent nucleus. The second characteristic is how the body is being designed. Whether it is made up of single cell, then it is known to be as unicellular. If it is made up of group of cells, then it is said to be as multicellular organisms. The third characteristic is based on production of food. If the organisms produce their own food, then they are known as autotrophs, and if they depend on others for food, then they are known as heterotrophs. Next characteristics is based on the level of organization of their body, whether they are cell organized or tissue organized or organized or organ system organized level of body development. All living things are identified and categorized on the basis of their body design in form and function based on the evolutionary relationship. What is evolution? Most life forms that we see today have arisen by the accumulation of changes in body design that allow the organism possessing them to survive better to the environmental conditions. Charles Darwin, the father of evolution, has been first described in his book known as Origin of Species, which describes his idea of evolution, which was published in 1859. When we connect this idea of Charles Darwin, idea of evolution to classification, we will find some group of organisms which have ancient body designs that have not changed very much. We will also find other group of organisms that have acquired their particular body designs relatively recently. After the evolutionary studies of classification, biologists such as Ernst Haeckel and Robert Whittaker, along with Carl Woese, have tried to classify all living organisms into broad categories called kingdoms. The classification Whittaker proposed 5 kingdoms as MONERA, Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia, and is widely used. These groups are formed on basis of their cell structure, mode and source of nutrition and body organization. The modification was introduced by dividing the MONERA into Archaebacteria and Eubacteria. Further classification was done by naming the subgroups at various levels such as phylum for animals, division for plants, then class, order, family, genus, species. Thus, by separating organisms on the basis of hierarchy of characteristics into smaller and smaller groups, we arrive at the basic unit of classification, which is a species. Now, we'll study the important characteristics of these 5 kingdoms of Whittaker. The first kingdom, MONERA. In this, organisms do not have defined nucleus or organelles, nor do any of them show multicellular body designs. On the other hand, they show diversity based on many characteristics. Some of them have cell walls, while some others do not have cell wall. Some have single and different effects on body design from having or not having cell wall in multicellular organisms. In this, the mode of nutrition of organisms can either be synthesizing their own food, that is autotrophic, or getting it from the environment, that is heterotrophic. This group includes bacteria, cyanobacteria, that is nothing but blue-green algae, and also mycoplasma, and few more examples such as Anabina. The next kingdom, Protista. This includes many kinds of unicellular eukaryotic organisms. Some of these organisms use appendages, that is locomotory organs. Different locomotory organs are used in these groups, such as hair-like cilia or whip-like flagella for moving around. Their mode of nutrition can be autotrophic or heterotrophic. So examples for this kingdom are algae, diatoms, protozoans. All are familiar with the protozoans such as amoeba, euglena, paramecium, which comes under the kingdom Protista. The next kingdom is fungi, and these are heterotrophic eukaryotic organisms. Some of them use decaying organic materials such as food and therefore called saprotrophs. Saprotrophs are the organisms which mainly depend on dead and decayed matter. Others require a living protoplasm of a host organism for food. They are called parasites. Actually, they get their food from their host itself. They have cell wall made of tough complex sugar called chitin. Under this, few examples such as yeast, molds, mushrooms. You are all familiar with agaricus, that is mushroom, right? And also yeast, which comes under this kingdom itself, the kingdom fungi. Some fungal species live in permanent mutual dependent relationship by sharing food and shelter. Such a living mutual dependent relationship is known as symbiotic relationship. These symbiotic life forms are called lichens. Lichens are the good example for showing the symbiotic relationship where algae and fungi share their food and shelter with each other. The next kingdom is Plantae. These are multicellular eukaryotes with cell walls. They are autotrophs and use chlorophyll pigment for photosynthesis. Thus, all plants are included in this group. Since plants and animals are most visible forms of diversity of life around us. The first level of classification among plants depends on whether the plant body has well differentiated, distinct parts. The next level of classification is based on whether the differentiated plant body has special tissues for transportation of water and food. And further classification looks at ability to bear seeds, and if the seeds are present, whether they are naked or enclosed within the fruits. Under the kingdom Plantae, there are divisions such as division Thallophyta, division Bryophyta, division Pteridophyta, division Gymnosperm and division Angiosperm. Now let us study each divisions in detail. Division Thallophyta. In this, plants do not have well differentiated body design. The plants in this group are commonly called algae. These plants are predominantly aquatic, such as Spirogyra, Ulothrix, Cladophora, Ulva, Chara. Under the division Bryophyta, they are called amphibians of the plant kingdom. Amphibians means they dwell both on land as well as water. Hence, this division is known as amphibians of plant kingdom. The plant body is commonly differentiated to form stem and leaf-like structure. There is no specialized tissue for the conduction of water and food and other substances from one part of the plant body to another. Under this Bryophyta, we can see mosses such as Funaria, Marchantia. The division Pteridophyta. In this, the plant body is differentiated into root, stem and leaves and has specialized conducting tissues for both water and food. The water conducting tissues are known as xylem and food conducting tissues are known as phloem. The reproductive organs of plants in all these groups are very inconspicuous and they are therefore called cryptogams or those with hidden reproductive organs. On the other hand, plants with well differentiated reproductive parts that ultimately make seeds are called phenograms. Seeds are the result of sexual reproduction process. They consist of embryo along with the stored food which assists for initial growth of embryo during germination. Under the Pteridophyta, you can see Marsilia, ferns and horsetail. Later, based on whether the seeds are naked or enclosed within the fruit, are divided into two groups as gymnosperms and angiosperms. The term gymnosperm is derived from the two Greek words which means naked and seed. That is, gymno means naked, sperma means seed. The plants of this group bear naked seeds and are usually perennial, evergreen and woody. Under this, pines, deodar, cycas comes under gymnosperms. The angiosperm. This word is derived from two Greek words, angio which means covered, sperma which means seed. Here the seed is covered within the fruit and these are also called flowering plants. The seeds develop inside an ovary which is modified to become a fruit, and ovules become seeds. Plant embryos in seeds have structure called cotyledons. Based on these cotyledons, they are again divided into two. What are cotyledons? Cotyledons are nothing but the seed leaves. The seed leaves are divided into two types. How they emerge instant and become green when the seed germinate. If single cotyledon present after germination, then they are known as monocotyledon. If two seed leaves germinate after germination, then it is known as dicotyledon. So plants with seeds having single cotyledon are called monocotyledons, and having two cotyledons are called dicotyledons. They are also known as monocots and dicots. Monocots and dicots can not only differentiated based on the cotyledons, which is the basic character. Other than that, the root and how the petals arrangements in flowers, these are few characters on which the gymnosperms and angiosperms can be differentiated. Kingdom Animalia, in this organisms which are eukaryotic, multicellular, heterotrophic. Their cells do not have cell walls. Most animals are mobile, that they move from one place to the another. They are further classified based on extent and type of the body design differentiated found. Kingdom Animalia is classified into different phyla. Phylum Porifera, Phylum Coelenterata, Phylum Nematoda, Phylum Platyhelminthes, Phylum Annelida, Phylum Arthropoda, Phylum Mollusca, Phylum Echinodermata, Phylum Protochordata, Phylum Vertebrata. Under Phylum Porifera, the word porifera means organisms with holes over the body. These are non-motile animals attached to some solid support. They are aquatic. The holes or pores over the body leads to canal system that helps in circulating water throughout the body to bring in food and oxygen. These animals are covered with hard outside layer of skeleton. The body design involves very minimal differentiation and division into tissues. They are commonly called sponges and are mainly found in marine habitat. Other than Cycon, Spongilla, Euplectella, these all come under Phylum Porifera. The next phyla is Coelenterata, or it is also known as Cnidaria. It is known as Cnidaria due to presence of stinging cells within their body. These animals living in water show more body design differentiation. There is a cavity in the body. The body is made of two layers of cells. One make up cells on the outside of the body and other makes the inner lining of the body. Some of these species lives in colonies while others live single or solitary. Living in colonies called corals, whereas living single such as hydra, jellyfish, sea anemones, etc. Next phyla, Platyhelminthes. As the name itself says, flat worms. Platy means flat, helminthes means worms. Hence, this group of animals are commonly known as flatworms. The body of animals in this group is far more complex in design than in two other groups. Body is bilaterally symmetrical, meaning they are divided into equal halves, having same design. There are three layers of cells, hence they are known as triploplastic. This allows outside and inside body linings as well as some organs to be made. Thus, some degree of tissue formation. There is no true internal body cavity or coelom in which well-developed organs can be accommodated. They are either free-living or parasitic. Some examples for free-living animals like Planaria and parasitic animals like liver flukes. Phylum Nematoda. Nematode body is also bilaterally symmetrical and triploblastic, that is divided into halves and 3 layers. The body is cylindrical rather than flattened. There are tissues but no real organs. Although a sort of body cavity such as pseudocoelom, false cavity is present in this. These are very familiar as parasitic worms. Parasitic worms are the worms which causes different diseases such as elephantiasis, which is caused by filarial worms, or the worms in the intestine such as roundworm or pinworm. Phylum Annelida. Annelida animals are also bilaterally symmetrical and triploblastic, but in addition they have a true body cavity when compared to Nematoda. This allows true organs to be packed in body structure. Thus extensive organ differentiation. This differentiation occurs in a segmental fashion, with segments lined up one after the other from head to tail. These animals are found in variety of habitats, freshwater, marine water as well as land. Under this, earthworms, leeches, lilies are familiar examples. Phylum Arthropoda. This is the largest group of animals. These animals are bilaterally symmetrical and segmented. There is an open circulatory system, so the blood does not flow in a well-defined blood vessels. The coelomic cavity is blood-filled. They have jointed legs, hence the name Arthropoda. Arthropoda itself means the jointed legs. Some familiar examples, as we all know, butterfly, housefly, spider, prawns, crabs, scorpions comes under phylum Arthropoda. The phylum Mollusca. In this animal are bilaterally symmetrical, the coelomic cavity is reduced and there is little segmentation. They have open circulatory system and kidney-like organs for excretion. There is a foot that is used for moving around. Common examples such as octopus, pila, unio, chiton. The next, phylum Echinodermata. The name taken from or derived from the Greek word echinos means spiny skeleton. The derma means skeleton, echino means spine. So, the organisms consist of spiny skeleton, hence they are known as Echinodermata. These are exclusively free-living marine animals. They are triploblastic and have coelomic cavity. They have peculiar water-driven tube system and they are used for moving around. They have hard calcium carbonate structure which composed as skeleton. Common examples such as sea star, sea cucumber, feather star, sea urchins, which are zoologically termed as Antedon, Holothurian, Asterias, Echinos. Phylum Protochordata. Under this, the animals are bilaterally symmetrical, triploblastic and have coelom. In addition, they show a new feature of body design such as notochord, at least some stages during their lives. What is notochord? Notochord is a long rod-like support structure that runs along the back of animal, separating the nervous tissue from the gut. It provides a place for muscles to attach for ease of movement. Protochordates may not have proper notochord present at all stages in their lives or for the entire length of animal. Protochordates are marine animals. Under this, Herdimania, Amphioxus, Balanoglossus are common examples. Phylum Vertebrata. These animals have a true vertebral column and internal skeleton, allowing completely different distribution of muscle attachment points to be used for movement. Vertebrates are bilaterally symmetrical, triploblastic, coelomic and segmented with complex differentiation of body tissues and organs. All chordates have common features such as notochord, dorsal nerve cord, triploblastic, paired gill pouches and coelomates. They are further divided into 6 classes such as class Cyclostomata, class PISCES, class AMPHIBIA, class REPTILIA, class AVES, class MAMMALS. Next coming to class Cyclostomata. Cyclostomata are jawless vertebrates. They are characterized by having elongated eel-like body, circular mouth, slimy skin and are scaleless. They are ectoparasites or borers of other vertebrates. Under this, petromycin, which is commonly known as lamprey and hagfish, are the examples. Under the class PISCES, these groups are known as fishes. They are exclusively aquatic animals. Their skin is covered with scales or plates. They obtain oxygen which is dissolved in water and they take oxygen through their gills. The body is streamlined and muscular tail is used for movement. They are cold-blooded and their hearts have only 2 chambers. They lay eggs and some with skeletons are cartilage and some are bony. Cartilage such as sharks and bony such as tuna, rohu, mackerel. Class Amphibia. These animals differ from fish in lack of scales, in having mucous glands in skin and 3-chambered heart. Respiration is through either gills or lungs or through skin. They lay eggs. These animals are found both in water and on land. Hence, the class is known as Amphibia. Frogs, toads, salamanders come under this group. Class Reptilia. These animals are cold-blooded and have scales and breathe through lungs. While most of them have 3-chambered heart, the crocodiles have 4-chambered heart. They lay eggs with tough coverings and do not need to lay their eggs in water, unlike amphibians. Snakes, turtle, lizards, crocodile come under this category. Class Aves. These are warm-blooded animals and have 4-chambered heart. They lay eggs. There is an outside covering of feathers and 2 forelimbs are modified as wings for flight. They breathe through lungs. All birds fall in this group. The common examples as you daily observe: crow, pigeon, sparrow, and the fastest running bird, ostrich, all come under this group. Class Mammalia. Mammals are warm-blooded animals with 4-chambered heart. They are grouped under Mammalia due to the presence of mammary glands. Mammary glands secrete milk for nourishing their young ones. Their skin has hairs as well as glands such as sweat gland and oil glands. Most mammals familiar to us produce live young ones. Hence, viviparous organisms. Few of them like platypus and echidna lay eggs, whereas like kangaroos and human, including human, give birth to younger ones. How are these organisms named? They have grouped under different categories. The systemic naming of living organisms is through scientific naming. The process is known as binomial nomenclature. The system of scientific naming or nomenclature we use today was introduced by Carolus Linnaeus in the 18th century. The scientific name of an organism is the result of the process of classification which puts it along with the organisms it is most related to. But when we actually name the species, we do not list out the whole hierarchy of groups it belongs to. Instead, we limit ourselves to writing the name of genus and species of that particular organism. World over, it has been agreed that both these names will be used in Latin forms. Certain conventions are also followed while writing the scientific names. Convention 1. The name of the genus begins with a capital letter. Convention 2. The name of the species begins with small letter. Convention 3. When printed, the scientific name is given in italics. Convention 4. When written by hand, the genus name and the species name have to be underlined separately. Thus, the binomial nomenclature is made up of two words, that is a generic name and a specific name. So this is about diversity of living organisms.